According to the Associated Press, he was deeply opposed to abortion rights and had attended Trump rallies and was registered as a Republican prior to moving to Minnesota. Notebooks found in his car had a list of more than 45 officials, including several Democratic members of Congress. Those are the facts, not disputed by anyone.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the Midas Touch Network. The shooter who assassinated a prominent Democratic lawmaker and her husband in Minnesota and who planned to kill many more was a committed Trump supporter animated by a hate-filled ideology. We have been sounding the alarm here that this was coming. It's why Kris Goldsmith is the most frequent guest on this show, because there is literally no one more qualified in the country to help us understand the motivations and the tactics of the extremists and hate groups who want people like us dead. I spoke with Kris about these latest killings and about what's coming next. My guest today is Kris Goldsmith, the founder of Veterans Fighting Fascism and Task Force Butler. He is America's leading authority on tracking and holding accountable extremists. Kris, we had political assassinations in Minnesota. And I'll just be honest with you. I'm not proud of this, but my first reaction was, I can't believe it took this long. I can't believe we got lucky for as long as we did, because I think this is actually the new normal.
Yeah, I am quite certain that if people go back through the episodes that I've done with you, I predicted that this would be the timing. This is not a surprise. A lot of studying extremist movements becomes kind of instinctual. And I have been, writing in threat assessments and war games and scenario planning that this is around the time that political assassinations would start to occur here in the United States. Now, we should acknowledge that two people attempted to shoot Donald Trump last year, so this is not a drastic acceleration. But one thing that we have seen is that each one of these folks very likely should not have had weapons in the first place. And that is, I think, an inconvenient talking point, but it is true that none of these men should have had firearms.
Well, we are experiencing a kind of perfect storm in this country of partisanship, radicalization, and easy access to firearms. There are plenty of countries with these kinds of partisan divides where you can't just go buy a gun or an automatic weapon or semi-automatic weapon. And the fact that we're able to do that here increases the threat of this kind of political violence by orders of magnitude. In Japan, they got to do it with knives, right? But I mean, I'm always thinking about that phrase, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Then why give the people who want to do that guns? It makes it so much easier.
Yeah. And one of the most, frightening parts, one of the most frightening things that we're going through is this, renaissance in home printed materials.
Yeah.
As the technology gets further and further along, the polymers that are used in 3D printing machines are stronger, more durable, can handle heat in ways that versions past could not. Luigi Mangione,
right.
He made himself a pistol that had a suppressor on it. It was all printed. We have reached a point where, regulating firearms from firearm manufacturers are not enough. We have to step into a place that I think is going to make people perhaps even more uncomfortable. And I don't know how to do it. How to track, who has 3D printers and what they are getting used for. Because this is a tool that, people, they don't have to be in the industry. They could be, out in rural areas. If they are trying to repair their tractor, it might be better and cheaper for them to print a part at home than it would be to, wait for John Deere, who has a monopoly on repairing their machines, to send someone out in 6 months while their business goes under, right? These 3D printing machines, as AI is are a tool that we now have, and we need to figure out how to regulate them before they become more dangerous than they are putting, in terms of putting out good in the world.
Hey, it's Ken Harbaugh. Huge shout out to everyone who has supported this show via our Patreon page. If you want to weigh in with questions for upcoming guests or give us feedback on past guests or make sure you never miss an episode, click the link below. It's free to sign up. And if you're able to pitch in a few bucks a month, just know that we put every dollar back into the show. We do have another reporting trip to Ukraine coming up. Thanks for the help. The other thing these violent assailants have in common, in addition to the access to firearms or these incredibly disruptive new technologies, is an immersion in a radicalizing propaganda that is also new. I mean, the total cocooning that you can experience online these days is something we also have to deal with. Every single one of these people believed things about the world that turned out to be untrue and radicalizing. And I would love, I don't want you to say his name because I hate it when we put these assassins on a pedestal, but can you tell us a little bit about the makeup of this latest assassin and the toxic ideology he swam in every day?
Yeah. So this latest assassin is someone who listened to InfoWars. Yeah. He was a registered Republican and he voted for Donald Trump. This is, these are facts that are reported by those closest to him, people who are expressing heartbreak for what happened with their best friend and roommate. There is not a motivation for these people to lie about this. And the guy fits the profile. One of the things that he listened to that, according to his best friend and roommate, is InfoWars. Alex Jones, the guy who had a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit levied against him for telling Americans that Sandy Hook, the elementary school that had a mass shooter come in, that it was all fake. That all of the parents were not real parents, they were crisis actors, that there were no children who did in fact die. And those families were terrorized and continue to be terrorized because Alex Jones convinced perhaps millions of Americans that this horrible event did not actually occur. And in fact, what did occur was a conspiracy to take away people's rights. To a conspiracy to disarm the American people, which has created a sense of paranoia that has led to people stockpiling firearms and ammunition, driving up the prices of these things, making ammunition difficult to get a lot of the time. I am a firearm owner. I have a concealed carry permit. Here in New York, I can legally carry on my person, on my own property and in any place that isn't like a private business or a state park or something like that, right? I have the right to carry. But 9mm rounds aren't always available at my gun store. And the reason is because the average person who goes into that gun store is watching Fox News, OAN, and Alex Jones. And they believe that they are going to play Rambo and that the Civil War is imminently upon us.
Can you talk about the role of Christian nationalism in all this? If I can find the right clip in a way that doesn't further inflame, I'm going to show this shooter on a stage in front of a church losing his mind.
And I'm just as excited about Jesus.
Et je suis juste excité
right
de
here,
Jésus.
right now.
Jusqu'à présent, même maintenant.
And when I get excited,
Et quand je suis excité,
I want to dance.
je veux danser.
And what Jesus did for me.
Ce que Jésus a fait pour moi.
Jesus is God.
Jésus est
Almighty
Dieu.
God.
C'est le Dieu
He
puissant.
saved my life.
Il a sauvé ma vie.
I'm excited about God.
Je suis excité de Dieu.
And I want to worship Him.
Et c'est pourquoi je l'adore.
Because He's coming again. And
Jésus, il revient encore.
And He's got plans. He's
Il
got
a
plans
de plans
and purposes
et le dessein
for each one of you
pour chacun de vous ici.
and for me.
What's the role of that kind of religious fervor, false religious fervor, I should say, in animating people like this?
So Task Force Butler's chief researcher came into the field of studying the far right and doing threat assessments because they were someone who was focused on protecting abortion providers and volunteers who work at women's health clinics. She is now one of the foremost experts in Christian nationalism, in violent Christian nationalism, because these things are one and the same. This shooter was someone who held deeply bigoted, intense religious beliefs. He was an evangelical pastor. And on his list of 70 individuals, though to my knowledge, as of the time we're recording, this list has not been released, and I don't anticipate it being released. I know from my chief researcher that it was her friends that were some of the people on this list because they have been involved in helping women to maintain their rights to bodily autonomy. So, this, I think, is the second time I've done a show with you in the last couple of weeks where I've talked about, political violence impacting people who are just 1 degree away from me. This is getting very real for me, for my team, and for lots of folks around the country.
That was part 1 of my interview with Kris Goldsmith. In part 2, which I'll post tomorrow, Kris talks about the shameful response of Republicans to this killing, including social media posts by a U.S. senator who joked about the assassinations while the manhunt was still underway. Thanks for watching.